Okay, so picture this. You're a polar bear, right? The king of the Arctic, but instead of this like vast icy kingdom, you're stuck on this tiny shrinking island of ice.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty stark image, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reality that polar bears are facing in our warming world.
Mm.
Today, we're going on a deep dive into a study from the University of Toronto. It's led by researcher Louise Archer.
Okay.
And this study, it doesn't just tell us that polar bears are in trouble.
Right.
It proves, shrinking sea ice is starving these polar bears,
Yeah.
and it's our fault.
Mm-hmm.
So the study's focused on Western Hudson Bay,
Okay.
and the numbers are pretty grim.
Mm-hmm.
The polar bear population there has plummeted by almost half
Wow.
in just 40 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so what's causing this, drastic decline?
Well, to understand that, we need to talk about sea ice.
Okay.
Sea ice is like the polar bear's lifeblood.
Mm.
It's not just frozen water, it's their hunting ground.
Right.
So imagine this giant white platform floating on the ocean. That's the sea ice.
Yeah.
Like a dinner table for polar bears.
Yeah.
Where they ambush seals that are popping up for air.
Right.
But as climate change is melting the ice, it's as if their grocery store is literally melting away.
So you're telling me that these bears are basically being cut off from their food supply?
Pretty much.
That's terrifying. How did the researchers actually connect the dots between melting ice and this population decline, though?
So they developed this remarkable tool called a bioenergetic model.
Yeah, okay.
This model, it doesn't just track a polar bear's weight.
Right.
It simulates how a polar bear uses energy throughout its entire life.
Yeah.
Hunting, swimming, raising cubs. And when they compared it to 40 years of real data from Western Hudson Bay, the model predicted the population decline with shocking accuracy.
Okay, so they basically built a polar bear simulator.
Yeah.
Did it come with a joystick? I'd love to try and catch a virtual seal, but seriously, what did this model reveal?
Well, the model clearly shows that as these bears are forced to fast on land for longer periods because of the lack of sea ice, they burn through their energy reserves much faster.
Right.
And that impacts their growth, their ability to reproduce, and even their survival.
Wow. So this energy crisis is hitting the most vulnerable,
Yeah.
the hardest, which are the cubs. What's happening to them?
So the data is heartbreaking. Adult females have lost, on average, a shocking 26 kilograms over the past few decades.
Wow.
And one-year-old cubs are 21 kilograms lighter than they used to be.
That's like a small child disappearing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's like a domino effect with the cubs at the bottom,
Right.
Those smaller cubs, they're less likely to survive those, increasingly long fasting periods, meaning fewer cubs are making it to adulthood.
And fewer cubs means that the population can't sustain itself.
Exactly.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But why is this particular group of polar bears, the ones in Western Hudson Bay, so important?
So Western Hudson Bay is what scientists call a bellwether population.
Okay.
Think of it like the canary in the coal mine.
Okay.
These bears live at the southern edge of the polar bears range.
Right.
So they're experiencing the effects of climate change sooner and more dramatically than other populations.
So what we're seeing in Western Hudson Bay is like a preview
Yeah.
of what's to come for polar bears all around the world.
Exactly what's happening there is a warning sign for the future of all polar bear populations as the planet continues to warm.
And it's not just about polar bears either, is it?
Absolutely not.
Right. Their decline must have like a ripple effect on the entire Arctic ecosystem.
Absolutely. Polar bears are apex predators at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Their decline throws the whole delicate balance of the Arctic ecosystem out of whack.
Yeah.
It's like a giant alarm bell telling us that something is seriously wrong in the Arctic.
And that something is human-caused climate change.
Yeah.
Right. The study is crystal clear about that.
The researchers are unequivocal. The root cause of this problem is greenhouse gas emissions. And it's up to all of us to address it. This study, published by Don Campbell at the University of Toronto, is a call to action not just for scientists and policymakers, but for everyone.
So what does this all mean for you, the polar bear enthusiast listening in right now, maybe from halfway across the world? What are the key takeaways from this study?
This study connects the dots between shrinking sea ice driven by climate change and the decline of polar bears in Western Hudson Bay.
Okay.
It reveals a domino effect. Loss of hunting habitat leads to less energy, which impacts growth, reproduction, and ultimately survival, especially for cubs.
Right.
And it's a clear message that this is a preview of what's to come for other polar bear populations around the world.
We started with this image of a polar bear stranded on shrinking ice, and now we understand the science behind it.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that climate change is happening now. It's not some abstract future threat.
Right.
It's having real and devastating consequences today.
Yeah, it is heavy stuff. But, knowledge is power, right?
The more we understand about the challenges that are facing polar bears and the Arctic,
Mm-hmm.
The better equipped we are to help.
Right. And this study gives us a roadmap. It shows us what needs to change and why the future of polar bears and the entire Arctic ecosystem depends on us taking action.
So for all the polar bear enthusiasts out there listening in from every corner of the globe, what can you do? What's the one thought-provoking question we can leave you with today?
Well, this study paints a pretty stark picture of the future for polar bears if we continue on our current path.
Right.
The question is, what actions can you take both individually and collectively to change that path? What will you do to mitigate the effects of climate change on this species and countless others?
It's a call to action for all of us. We'll be sure to link to the study originally published by Don Campbell at the University of Toronto in the show notes, so you can dive deeper into the research yourself. What resonates with you? What actions are you inspired to take? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. The more we understand about the challenges facing our planet, the better equipped we'll be to protect it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.